It's funny because even when we got to production, there were a couple scenes where you're like, "Oh, we don't need this scene." Right? There was one we actually
Right.
literally cut while we were in production. We're like, we've already hit this note, but
Yeah.
we didn't hear it in the read through, right? We
Yep.
didn't catch it earlier, and then of course in editing, there are other scenes you're like, we don't need this scene, right? We didn't know in the read through, but it did help just kind of making it more
There are a
real.
couple of really great scenes that I love that didn't
Yeah.
make film, but that's okay.
Welcome to the This Train podcast, where we'll talk about all things in the making of This Train, the movie. Today's special guest is Ed Paul Fry, star and producer of the film. My name is Jack Lugar. I'm the writer and director of This Train, and I'll be your host. So we picked July 9th, and then basically we said, okay, we got a year for pre-production. And the other reason we picked summer, again, because I'm a college professor, I have my summers off, so that's when I have time to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of my idea was I'll have the school year, which I can't put 100% effort into preparing, but I can start preparing. And then it was towards the middle of summer, so I had part of my beginning of summer to finalize prep. And so, so we just started that process, which that time gave us allowed us to slow roll.
Mm-hmm.
I think we didn't feel like all of a sudden we're like panic. I mean, the panic does come as we get closer, but really we started kind of nailing down locations. I had some students I had in mind who could actually work on crew that I knew would be dependable and could help make it happen. And we started the process of trying to cast, and shame on me as a writer writing too many characters into the, that's like a big independent film no-no.
Yeah.
Limit your characters, limit your locations. When I was writing it, I thought, there's only these, and we'll go back to use these same ones over again. Well, it still ended up being like 15 locations and 25 actors. And I'm like, I did it wrong in some senses. But I also tried to write around things that I knew I had access to, right? So I wrote in the horse property, which my sister-in-law and brother-in-law own with their horses, and they had the woods and so
lovely.
the barn.
Absolutely lovely.
So that worked out nice, and we wanted to shoot in and around locations in Anderson, and the other reason I thought Ed's perfect for this is one of the things I found as I was getting to know you was that everybody in Anderson. I mean, that's a hyperbole. But I was like, man, Ed knows Anderson. He knows people here. One of the things that not only in bringing the character to life was that you could help us secure some locations.
Sure.
And you did. I mean, with Gary and Darla Salih letting us use their house was just a miracle. Great
to be able to intrude on someone like that and people not realizing what it takes to film something, that was kind of amazing to me. So
poor Gary, when we turned off the AC in his house, he came home, turned it on. We're like, you got to turn it off. He kindly did.
Exactly.
Right. But I mean, to go into somebody else's house and shoot, because I was like, well, if we have to, we can shoot in my house, but it's just not the right place.
Right.
We did invade in your space for a day of shooting. All these little things.
Yeah.
And then the extra stuff where I just showed up at Dave's Auto Service and talked to Connie. Just went in there, and of course I had my full beard. I looked all scraggly because I was preparing for my small role, and I was like, I looked like a homeless guy kind of coming in there. Do you mind if we shoot a film in your? But I had already scoped it out. I knew. I mean, the only thing I didn't really plan for probably was all the traffic and bad mufflers that would drive by.
Yeah, it's there. I think there's a law against having a muffler in city limits in Anderson. So it's we realized that.
We battled a lot of cars. But I had driven by that place so many times and just thought this is a great little location to shoot.
Right.
And so I literally probably for a month didn't have the guts to stop.
Yeah.
There are lots always full with a lot of cars because they're working like crazy. But I was like, one day I finally forced myself to pull in there and walked in there and kind of just tried to humbly say, here's what we're doing. Here's where I work. Would love to use your space. And I knew that they were closed on Saturday, Sunday. And so I had mentally already said, we can shoot this on a Saturday. which actually now I go back in time. We started shooting on a Friday because we shot at their place on a Saturday. So our first day was at Park Place Church, the men's group.
That's right.
Which was another challenging spot to kind of find where is this going to be at, and but through your connections with Park Place and them over there, they let us use their basement, which worked out perfectly too. Anyway, but I went in and just kind of explained to Connie what we were doing, and she was like, "Oh, well, let me talk to Dave." I didn't know that Connie was Dave's wife, but she said, "Let me talk to Dave and come back by and I'll let you know." And so I think I came back a week later and showed up, and she was like, "Oh, I talked to Dave," and Dave was like, "You said yes, right?" So they were just so wonderful,
They were great. If I recall, they made a party out of it while we were shooting. They sat off to the side and watched the whole thing. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, they
had a
came,
cooler and everything.
Yeah, they had a good. Connie had a good time, and the Stokes actually sat in, and I got to know them there, and just they were nice about putting cars on lifts and providing little tools that we needed, and that's one of the beauties, I think, of doing independent filmmaking in non-Hollywood influences in spaces, because it's new, it's fresh, so it's something that you don't see all the time, and so almost everybody was just so accommodating.
They were.
And that was, again, and you don't want to. I mean, we worked very hard. I tried to, at least, to be very generous with spaces, leaving it better than when we came to it, and being appreciative of what. I hope we did, and I hope I didn't burn any bridges. That was
I don't think we did. You know, people were incredibly hospitable. Again, not understanding or realizing what happens when a film crew moves in and just kind of has to take over and do all of these different things. Shutting off air conditioners, refrigerators, anything that makes a sound. You're trying to create a closed set in a very public place, and maybe Hollywood gets that. Maybe people in LA get that, people in New York, Atlanta, wherever. That doesn't happen in Anderson.
Right.
So it's kind of like, oh, wait, this is really interrupting my workflow. I just thought you were coming in with an iPhone.
Yeah. And you're going to shoot a scene, that'll take a minute, or they take an hour, right? And that was my sister-in-law, and we shot at her space, and I think almost to this day, if the film comes up in conversation, she's like, I can't believe how long it would take to do a scene.
Yeah.
Right. And so I preach to my students, at minimum with a scene, you've got 6 angles that you're taking. Now, that's rules are made to be broken, but the typical, as I tell them, is you're getting a wide, right? And if it's 2 people talking, you're getting a 2-shot, kind of like what we're doing right now. And then you are going to then go to over the shoulders of each character. And then if you can, you get cleans of each person, right? So that there's nothing dirtying the frame. It's just them. I wish I had more of those, to tell you the truth. And that's just the basic 6.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if with independent films, we don't have as much time to get fancy with the camera and right. So we tended to stick to some of the simpler stuff. But then on top of that, then you need to get cutaways.
Yeah.
Right. And I think if I went back, and this is probably, again, getting ahead of myself, if I could do more cutaways and not worry as much about getting the lighting perfect for some of the cutaways. But I think a lot of times we're like, we don't have time to set the lights, so let's not do it. And when I think if I go back, I would say, you know what, we don't have time to set the lights perfectly. Let's just shoot that.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And there were some cutaways that didn't work. I have one where in the wide shot, something's being grabbed right hand, and then in the cutaway, it's left hand. And I'm like,
well,
you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's completely wrong.
Who knows?
Let's talk about the read-through. Do you remember
the original read-through?
The original read-through with we put sets of tables in our studio and gathered people and fed them Mexican food, which nobody hardly ate, so I had leftovers for a long time.
Yeah, I remember that pretty well. It's the first time getting together and first time meeting a lot of these people. We didn't know what we were getting into. I think we pulled an old friend to play my father, just to kind of read through the father, H.L. Baker.
Yeah.
And for those in Anderson University land, H.L. is a legend around here. Everybody's known him forever, and that was a lot of fun, just connecting with him on that. But that's who I remember. Sam.
Yep.
Sam Lynch. He was there. Sam played. What was his name?
Danny.
Danny.
Danny boy.
Danny boy, who was the overeager person there at the AA meetings and whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's like Sam's so good. He just played that character so stinking well. He's such a natural at that. But that was it. I mean, just kind of looking around the table, I'm like, well, here we go.
Yeah. So yes, Sam read and he did that part, and Anya was there and she did that part. There were, and then students I knew gathered. I called a friend of mine, Brent Croxton, who actually played Simon Simmons in it. I conned him into coming out and the reading with us. He was kind enough to do that, and then we had some students and some people just come and listen to it, sit and kind of give some feedback too. It's funny because even when we got to production, there were a couple scenes where you're like, oh, we don't need this scene. Right, there was one we actually literally cut while we were in production. We're like, we've already hit this note, but we didn't hear it in the read through, right? We didn't catch it earlier, and then of course in editing, there are other scenes you're like, we don't need this scene, right? We didn't know in the read through, but it did help just kind of making it more real.
There are a couple of really great scenes that I loved that didn't make the film, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's part of the editing process, and so that certainly. Did, but so the read through was great, and then one of the things other in the pre-production process was you started putting together an album of music.
I did.
You wrote 4 original songs, recorded them.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
That was, honestly, music's my life, my passion's what I've done all my life. It just never worked out into like the full time. I've always. It was the great line from Merle Haggard's song. I've always been a minor leaguer, never, probably never get much bigger. But it was just one of those things. It was a cool part. But I've written a lot. I've had lots of recordings along the way. People recorded my stuff, and I've done some things along the way, and some things, just enough to always keep the taste. Yeah. But I've never done my own project, and this was that moment where I was like, okay, we've got this film. We're going to need music for it. This is my time to do this. And so it was like perfect storm for a lot of things in my life coming together. And it was like, I need to figure out how to just get these recorded, and ran a couple of the songs past you, I think, and some things like that. And then actually got into the studio. Was able to put those down and use those as part of the soundtrack. Calling Benji Gaither, who produced the songs and was co-writer on one of them. It was just, and he and I have worked together for 35 years, literally. I mean, we've been writing together and playing together for forever, and this just worked out. He is also in the film, plays Ace the bartender.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. Doing that, I remember going into this, and I probably have told this story before, but as we rounded the corner from 21 to 2022, a friend of mine called me up. It was New Year's Day, 2022, and her line was, she said, "I just need to tell you this, that creation is the opposite of fear. What are you afraid of?" And I think we all face that. I'm like, I don't, there are all sorts of reasons why we give ourselves why we don't do something.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're going to make this film this year. Guess what? I need to do an album. I don't know how we're going to do this. So, we do the fundraiser. We do all of this Kickstarter thing, whatever it was that we did. And so just to make it all happen. And it worked. I'm pretty proud of those songs. And I think they worked. I didn't know how they would work for the film, but actually, script-wise and story-wise and everything else, I think that they kind of fit into it. And then, creating other other things for it, as far as scoring and
Right.
and rearranging some other songs too. One of the first things that, when I first read the script, the one that, the scene around the campfire where they're singing a hymn, Ricky, will you sing a song, sing your mama's favorite song and everything else. And I don't know, you had something in there, some hymn there or something. I'm like, no, I know the perfect song for this. And I mean, literally, Jack, I'm reading that scene, and then I pick up my guitar as I'm reading that scene for the first, and I'm playing on my guitar, and I start playing I'm the Lord's I Know, which is an old Church of God Anderson tune. It's Charles Naylor wrote it, and it's one of those. It's one of my favorite hymns from our tradition, my tradition, and it just was perfect because you're talking about this lyric of whether I live or die, whether I wake or sleep. And Ricky, the character, is dealing with. That was the whole story.
Yeah.
I've come back, or Ricky's come back to, doesn't care anymore whether he lives or dies, and it just became an emotional scene. I'm just that. I think that was the moment really for me when I'm like, this is a yes from everywhere in the universe,
right?
Because that song just fits perfectly here. Everything else is going to fall into place, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what as far as doing the music. Things were concerned. So
I'm trying to remember what I had in there, whether it was like "Just as I Am" or it was, some classic hymn or something that you were going to do acoustic, or in my mind.
Right.
But yeah, that's always the thing.
Or you just do the Hollywood "Amazing Grace" because everybody goes to that in Hollywood because that's the only song they seem to know.
The only hymn out there. Yeah. Well, and I'm not Church of God, so I don't. I mean, I think I don't even know if I'd heard "I'm the Lord's I." No, by that time.
You've heard it way too much.
I know it very well. Well, and as Adam Howell at Heartland Film Festival said, the best acoustic version ever created.
That was very sweet of him.
Yeah, I agree. So, I'd love to get your version without our other cast members.
We'll work on that. It's in the film, and we'll work on that.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of This Train, the podcast. Join us again next time as we look at the production process for the film. Until then, take care.